Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's Substack Live at the Sustainable Media Center. My name is Emma Lembke, and I serve as the Director of Gen Z Advocacy at SMC. And I am so incredibly lucky to be joined in conversation today by Hywel Mills. Hywel is a marketing and business growth leader with 15 plus years of experience working with everyone from startups to the world's leading brands, nonprofits, and media companies. Currently, he is a publisher at The Signal. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Emma. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So for today's discussion, I just really want to dive into and discuss the signal, what it is, why it exists, and why this moment in today's digital world demands a platform like it. So I know the signal to be this, US-based current affairs brand, but can you tell us a little bit more about how it came to be?
Yeah. Wow. So the Signal is led by myself. So I'm the publisher, and John Jameson Gould is our editor. We Our paths crossed at the Atlantic many years ago. And actually, John, who started everything up initially, would tell you that the idea came to him when he was working at the Atlantic. And he, based on some of his observations there, was really looking to kind of offer something different in current affairs. So something that is less narrative based and much more kind of based in asking big questions and exploring those and helping the reader understand the world on their own terms, as opposed to what you see in many kind of editorial platforms, right? You'll have a reporter go out, report something, come back, it'll be packaged, edited, and you're told a story. We think that actually there's a different way of doing things, and kind of providing an experience that allows a reader to understand and go deeper for themselves, as opposed to being told kind of what to think, or what kind of the conclusion might be.
Yeah, and kind of expanding into that line of thinking, what exactly is that gap in the current media landscape that you feel wasn't being filled? And, how is the signal working to step into that space? You kind of talked a little bit about it. Can you expand a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. Again, I think for us, everything comes back to this idea, right? This idea of helping people understand the world. We talk, a little bit about kind of being a loyal guide in changing times, and sort of, I think that's really important because for us, while today we have the website, we have features regularly published there, we have a newsletter that goes out 3 or 4 times a week with briefings, and we have a weekend kind of magazine. Like that's for us just a starting point, right? And actually, anything you see today is just the starting point for us. We're looking to do events. We have print editions, kind of. I'm really interested to see what other platforms develop, and different kind of experiences we can have. And I think I will get to a point, I promise, when I think about the market and the kind of how most media organizations either come into being or try and evolve, right? Like often um, they're based around changes of form. So we've had a big newsletter boom, right? Fine. We've had a lot of kind of uh, things like smart brevity from Axios, which is great and incredibly well executed. But the idea is around form, and kind of giving something new, like allowing people to kind of understand something quickly. You then have the kind of the opposite of that, right? Which is slow news. So there's a brand Tortoise in the UK that you may have heard of, or like, kind of an obsession with, oh, we're going to do a lot more long form. Like no one like thinks something's good just because it's long. Like it's either good and interesting and well created. It's like it's not good because it's long or slow, or it's something that's given to you in 30 seconds. I think for us, like the kind of trying to realize this idea and experiment with that is really important. And we tested it. Kind of we grew our audience and tried to grow our audience organically. As I mentioned, kind of John had this idea of creating a different experience. And one of the most important things for us was that we could find readers, or readers could find us everywhere. So again, having worked at big kind of mainstream, famous publishers, both of us saw the heat maps of your audiences, the kind of the coastal elite or coastal audience cliche is real if you look at kind of the metrics that are often, in these newsrooms. And so for us, as we built things up and experimented with the way in which we were kind of trying to realize this idea, it was really important to us. We were seeing as many people signing up in the Carolinas as California, right? Like we don't just want to have, even though we're based in DC, we're not just trying to build out a new uh, property that services the DC audience in a different way, right? And captures that market. There's already a lot out there. So anything and everything we do has to kind of serve an audience need, serve a latent demand for understanding the world. Um, it has to be beautiful. Like that's really important to us, and I don't think that's always realized across the marketplace. It has to be a beautiful kind of experience. Um, so yeah, I think if I, coming back to your original question, think about the marketplace and finding gaps. For us, it was less about kind of competing against or, building out a counterpoint to one kind of publication and forging our own path um, behind what we see as sort of the needs and desires of kind of an American audience, but also a global audience.
Exactly. And you talked a little bit about, expanding into this newer audience and not just catering to the coastal elite, which I think is phenomenal and wonderful. But when you think about other successes for the signal, what does that look like in practice?
Yeah. I mean, a great question. We're still a young organization. We've got ambitions to do more collaborative projects and more kind of print projects. We actually have a big one launching in May around soccer, global football, I should say, from my British roots. So that our next print edition will be launching at the end of the month. So any football fans, soccer fans, keep an eye out for announcements around that. Fresh, that's an exclusive for you, Emma. And I think, like I said, anything you see today is really the like minimum viable product or the next layer of what we want to build on. So we have amazing music recommendations. Like, and I can say that because they're not from me. We have a guy, Brendan, who is just encyclopedic about global music. And so, if you're tired of just being served kind of what you get off Spotify or whatever, then like he does an amazing job. He'll take you around the world. He'll resurface, amazing music from, the past. And I want to do more about that, more culture. We want to do more in the tech space and coverage space. So everything that you sort of see, we want to do more of, but not for the sake of it, and not to just kind of keep people on site, but because we want to find the big questions and we want to kind of deliver that for people. So that's where success will lead us. And yeah, I like the kind of the quirky stuff. I want to do like more like weird things that like collaborations or merchandise or like events, and that would be success for me. Being able to kind of realize this idea in as many ways as we can and kind of build that community around it as well.
And I think for a lot of people, success can seem far off and can be really difficult because trust in media is at a historic low.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
how do you think that the signal is working to actively rebuild that in order to get to those success
Yeah.
points?
I mean, trust needs to be earned, right? And um, we actually had someone email us the other day, and we, read and respond to as many of our emails as we can, and just straight up said, like, how can I trust you? And I think, John responded personally to it and sort of said, look, from our perspective, we scrutinize our sources. We stick to evidence. We try not to be led by narratives. We ask lots of questions. That's at the heart of what we do, right? Again, it's about asking questions and going deeper, as opposed to kind of coming at something with an opinion or a slant or a partisan perspective. And so, we'll continue to do that. I think, it's something we hold ourselves up to really important standards. But it's trust. It has to be earned. Um, I think so. That's sort of just like that's kind of a boring response. Like, is like, how do we earn trust? We do the best job we can. We hold ourselves to high standards. I think in the industry more broadly, one of the things that we see is that the business incentives around media now are such that I don't think it's any wonder that people don't trust a lot of the media, and publishers out there, right? Because it's very clear to see that your attention is being sought and monetized, right? Um, a lot of it's for entertainment, a lot of it's for kind of eyeballs, and I think where you have something like CNN that is on one hand uh, really rigorous, great journalists and reporters, and also has panel shows like you see on ESPN, where you find the people who argue the most, right? Like that is going to be detrimental. It's great for your ratings. It probably, gets you lots of hits online. But ultimately, if your business incentives are around capturing audience attention and maintaining it, you're going to do things or be led towards things that aren't are gonna sort of lead people to have different opinions of you and not necessarily trust you because it's not in your core kind of mission. And you see that in tech, right? You see that in the AI platforms today, grappling with, okay, well, on the one hand, we say we want to be for humanity and we want to create this amazing technology. And then, it's like, okay, and then we're going to feed ads in through it as well. And it's like, okay, well, that's your decision. But if you're asking for trust, you can't necessarily then monetize in ways that diminish that trust. So for us, um, our business structure, the kind of we don't benchmark ourselves necessarily on um, your attention. Like we're not necessarily looking to get lots of clicks and engagement baiting people. For us, habit and loyalty are really important. And also habit and loyalty are healthy relationships that you can build, right? Like we want people to come. I want more readers. I want I want everyone to know about the signal, but I also want everyone to like not depend on it. And I don't want people to kind of feel like they need to keep clicking or they need to come back. And we don't employ any kind of tactics to do that either.
I love that. I think that you're just hitting the nail on the head. We talk all the time at SMC about the corrosive nature of the business model of big tech. And like you said, just profit attention maximization. And oftentimes, like you said, that does not work well for building trust. So you perfectly answered my next question, which was going to be about, navigating algorithms and rewarding
Right.
outrage over accuracy. So I'm going to jump to the next question, which is,
I, but I mean, before we do, this is really, really important and something that, and we actually did a presentation to another amazing organization, Project Liberty, about this very topic, right? About like your business model absolutely drives the decisions you make. And if you are not intentional about thinking about like what pressures your business model are going to put on you and on your decision makers, you can have the best intentions in the world, but often you'll get to a point where you're like, okay, well, we need to partner with an advertiser for these monies, or which we need to hit this target or build, or we want to grow through social media, so we need to play the game and play and do things that fits there, as opposed to being in control of your own metrics and measurement and things that you track and build for. Similarly, especially in our industry, right? Like, what are the incentives of the people at the top? Like and again, this isn't me being judgmental, but if you're a founder who's building for an exit, your incentives are different to an organization or a leadership team that is building for sustainability and longevity. So again, that's not to pass judgment. people should and can make money doing things and build successful businesses and exit and do all of those things. But if that's the path you want to go on, the decisions you make at the top and the expectations of what success looks like and the timeline for that success that comes down the organization are gonna come from that. And so for us, the signal is a long-term project. It is part of bigger things that we want to be part of, and that helps us build these relationships, hopefully build trust, and kind of be a little bit more in control of our destiny rather than sort of falling into some of the kind of, you know, attention economy traps that others sort of follow.
Absolutely, could not have said it better. And you talked a lot about, truth or trust, and
Yeah.
SMC is kind of, we say that this is our year of truth, trust, and tech. So kind of talking about, those three beats, what is
Sure.
your perspective as a member of the Signal and the broader news ecosystem on the idea that, like in quotes, none of us wholly owns the truth, which
Sure.
was stated on y'all's amazing LinkedIn,
Uh,
while still recognizing the need for like a shared baseline of truth in journalism and in sustaining democratic systems?
yeah. Um, I love that's your priority, those three T's. That's great. I'm gonna take them on board. Um, so uh this idea of not no one owning the truth, and well done for digging it out and doing your research and everything, and kind of I haven't looked on that page for a while myself. Um, we see the world as detectives. Like this is something we talk about a lot internally. John and I talk about. We talk about this with other people, right? We see the world as detectives. Like the world is interesting. The world is full of kind of things that are very obvious and right in front of our eyes, and there are things that aren't, as well. But we think that you need to ask questions about that. And questions, and the best questions lead you to more questions, right? And so this sort of whether it's owning or finding the truth is sort of an endeavor that is one that is ongoing. We also uh, firmly believe in talking to specialists and not pundits. So again, like there are many people that you'll see on TV or you'll read or you'll listen to that will be asked questions that are way outside of their range of expertise. And like that is just sort of part of the world we live in. Occasionally you'll see people, and I love it when you'll see celebrities do this sometimes, where like a celebrity will be asked a politics question, or they'll be asked about like, like a tech IPO or something. They'll be like, I don't know. Like I'm like an actor. Like I don't know. Like you go and ask someone who knows what they're talking about. And so with the Signal, we find the people who know the most about a subject that we are interested in. And again, they not to say that they have all of the answers and know everything, but they've spent their lives dedicated to a subject, and that's everyone from like we've spoken to economists who've gone on to win the Nobel Prize for economics. We've spoken to award-winning movie directors about documentaries they've made. We've talked to diplomats, or spoke to people who kind of leading in their fields of different industries, or have kind of set policy and built things, right? And so we'll find the people that know what they're talking about. We'll ask them questions that are very transparently kind of what we think a reader would be interested in asking, not just like us as editors or contributors. So in that respect, we don't, I think you can get closer to understanding by finding the people who know what they're talking about. But it's also an art and in finding the people that aren't necessarily just going to tell you what they think. And we all know those people. Like I think of it when, if you're in and this is again my British heritage, I think about like being in the pub. Okay, so you're in the pub and you're talking about something in a group of friends, or maybe it's people, some people you know, some people you don't know so much. And there's someone who works in an industry, or is a researcher or a journalist, right? Someone, and you get onto a topic that they know the most about around the table, and people ask them questions and they talk about it. Like that leads to a really rich conversation and like a really like interesting kind of interaction. But we also have always been, we've all been in the pub where there's someone who thinks they know everything because they've like taken the hot takes and they like the sound of their own voice. And that's like the absolute worst. And often that's what we experience online. And like we wouldn't put up with it in the pub or we'd come out afterwards being like, what a jerk. And we do. And yet, so much of what we experience in the media and online resembles the blowhard at the pub and not the like really rich interaction that we have when we're in a group and there's someone who knows more, but and you can learn from, but they're not preaching to you. Um, so that's like how I think about things. And if we can like bottle that and give that to people and bring them into that great experience, then to your earlier question, that's success, I think.
Well, I love that example because I think you're right. Like we wouldn't put up with that in a pub. We would not be, to your point, people would be so annoyed. Like, why are we doing that? And why are
Right. They would be
interrupting?
uninvited. They're not coming next time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's our entire digital ecosystem and diet. So I think
Yeah.
that that's a really good pondering and question is like, how can we regain control over kind of what we're
Right.
consuming online? So the last question I have, and sorry, everyone's probably hearing the sounds of New York behind me.
That's good.
The
That
last question I have is, what gives you hope right now in the media landscape? Because we've talked a lot about, the fact that it is broken, it is difficult. What is
hmm
kind of keeping you going?
I mean, that's a long for this one. It should be like, I'm hopeful. I mean, I'm an optimist. I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't an optimist and didn't think that there were, different ways of people kind of interacting with media. And I also think like this is a moment, but I think we've seen different changes and kind of recency bias is something that we live with as human beings. And I think something like AI is absolutely disruptive, transformative. We don't know how that's going to play out. But also we saw TV come in, we saw radio, you've seen all these things disrupt and change and flux and we'll keep moving forward. And I think I have two younger kids and I'm hopeful that they will have a different experience. Certainly when it comes to like we're talking a lot about the center here, and we've spoken a lot about the center, and there's a lot of kind of gray areas, and that will probably be messy, and people will find their way and not. But I think on the most harmful edges around addiction and around you know those sorts of things, I'm hopeful that you're already starting to see people kind of put interventions in for future generations, right? Like, whether it be keeping kids off social media until a certain age, whether it be kind of just being aware of these things in a way that like we're right now caught up with all of this rapid change. And my hope is that as we go through this, yes, it's going to be messy for us, but actually you learn from that, right? There's a reason that both it took too long to ban smoking, but also smoking got banned or regulated, right? So like things change. We humans tend to try and look after one another eventually, even if it takes takes time to do that. But like I said, I'm an optimist. So I'm sure you speak to lots of people who are a lot less optimistic than I am.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a beautiful way to end because I think that techno optimism is hard to come by,
Yeah.
especially when in the age of AI and as things progress.
Yeah.
But it's a nice note because, like you said, things change. People tend to look out for one another, hopefully, and it's just a reminder that if tobacco and things like that were regulated, like with social media, we've got a chance, especially with the cases that have been,
Right.
the verdicts that we've been getting recently, and just the general shifts in the movement. Well, in general, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insights with us today. As always, everyone, we look forward to being in continued conversation with you, and we will speak with you again next week. So thank you again for coming on.
Amazing. Thank you. Really appreciate being asked and really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you, Emma.
Lovely.